Hi, everybody. This is Allison from Alley Cat Creations. How are you? Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you have yet to do so. And if you get anything from my work, a connect, a dot, an epiphany, a mind explosion, a new piece of paintings to make, please go to the links down in the description. And that's a really nice way to help me out. It keeps me going and fed. AlleyCatCreations211.com is where you could see pyramids, a lot more pyramids and paintings and all kinds of fun stuff that I do. Check out my website. Um, if you're interested in any of the things that are on my website, please email me. I do just about everything privately. And channel memberships is only one tier. It's a really nice way to help and support the channel, keep Zoom and other things paid. So check that out. Channel members get channel memory only oracle readings. For now, I might be doing some other things when I have the time. And also I have raffles and giveaways. The next one is a crystal skull, gems inside epoxy. This is not going to be raffled off, but something like that. So channel members get a free entry into those raffles. And someone won a $150 pyramid and a paint and sip painting. They get to choose which one. Those are fun things. So it's a great way to help me out. The Seventh Seal, Chapter 6, A Glance at Fundamentals. I'm hoping to get through the whole thing today. It is a little lengthy, but we'll see how far I can get because I'm tired today. With certain individuals, a satisfactory standard of living may be sufficient to inspire them to live to their highest. But with others, many, I believe, a satisfactory theory about life is quite essential to enable them to find their poise and thus be ready to live their best lives. I am therefore presenting my understanding of some few fundamental principles, which I hope may be helpful to others. In connection with the theory of evil and its origin, we frequently hear the expression mortal mind, as though it was something that belonged to us as human beings apart from God. Keyword apart. And many of the explanations we hear given of mortal mind and its effects are very confusing to those inclined to weigh the meaning of words. In the first place, there is no such thing as mortal mind. All the mind in the universe is the mind of God. Thank you. Our mind is just a part of that mind, and this so-called mortal mind is only our limited appropriation of the infinite mind of which ours is a part. This limitation is due to our having evolved from lower forms of physical life and lower stages of mentality, resulting as yet in an incomplete state of development in comparison to what we are destined to become as we approach nearer a realization of our real nature as one with God. Take, for example, the mind of an infant in comparison with that of a mature man. It is impossible for the babe to comprehend everything at once. It has to develop its faculties gradually through experience and observation, but there is no blame in connection with the undeveloped state of the baby's mind. It simply has not had sufficient time to develop. Neither is there any blame in connection with our so-called mortal mind. It is only incomplete and has yet to unfold powers of spiritual understanding to greater degrees. The explanations, the unreality of evil in the absolute sense. Evil is nothing but the misconception of truth in manifestation and arises from the very degrees of incompleteness of the perfect being that man is designed to be. I agree. Everything done by him, that which is called good or evil, is originally caused by the urge of the spirit within seeking for expression through an instrument as yet very imperfect. This statement gives no license to the evildoer, for as long as he gives expression to this lack of development, called evil, he must of necessity reap the reward of this evil. Nor does it argue that wrongdoing should go unrestrained, but that such restraint should look not only to the welfare of others concerned, but to the uplift of the offender as well, and not be established or carried out on the principle that anything is gained in any way through retaliation or vengeance. It all resolves itself into the fact that creation is not yet complete. God made the world and brought man from lower beings to a state of individual consciousness and a measure of intelligence, and now he is soliciting man's cooperation to appropriate the powers of infinite life which he has put within each soul. He is striving to make us realize his presence within ourselves and give expression to the divinity now in this life, not delaying it to an imagined distant heaven. Agreed. Referring again to the little child, through infancy in its early years, the mother's watchfulness surrounds it very closely, but as it approaches years of maturity, she allows it to depend upon itself, or if she does not, the child's individuality and independence will not be properly developed. It seems to me just the same way with us as God's children. Through all those ages, while we were developing in intelligence, God brought us along the way without our knowing much about it, I fancy. But having arrived at a degree of self-consciousness, it is as if God said to each of us, now it is time for you to put to use the power and ability I have given you, that you may develop your own individuality in higher states of consciousness until you come to the full realization of what you are, an individual personality yet identical with the universal God, and the joy that this knowledge will bring. For if you should not develop through use the faculties already given, it would be impossible for you to obtain any higher state of consciousness that you now have. And you are still bound by misunderstanding and limitation. Your life is not complete and joyous as I planned it for you from the beginning. But you have a part to do. You must work with me from this time on, and while you shall find eventually that all power is from me, yet you will see how we are one, and still you may have an individual personality and consciousness given you by this method of development, which is the only means that will obtain the desired end. The meaning of it all may at times baffle your understanding and distress you, but keep faith in my good plan for you, and it will be plain in time, and you will be grateful for it all. I agree with her. And many of us are in this stage right now. Sorry, Pete, it is this same urge from within, which causes different results, good and so-called evil, in differently organized and developed brains and minds, just as the same white light will appear red, blue, or green through differently colored globes. This may seem impossible at first, though, but that it is just what it amounts to when we think far enough back. All of what we call the lower emotions arise from and are in greater or lesser measure accesses of impulses that had their place in the creation of human being. In bringing us from the lower forms of life to what we now are, and as we rise in the scale of being and better realize our unity with all life, these same tendencies become transformed until, for instance, we find the highest outgrowth of impulse of selfishness, causing a man to lay down his life for his friends, because under certain conditions, he would rather do it than not. This is why there is no evil in reality. What we look on as evil is evil in a relative sense and is only the result of an incomplete growing condition. though we are apt to forget that this as we look out over the turmoil and sorrows of earth. Nor would I underrate the fact that evil, as we all are accustomed to speak of it, is a lamentable thing, which will with which to be associated for those who have passed beyond the stage of development in which the urge of the spirit causes men to do things which to those higher in the scale seem horrible, terrorizing. But this is the only explanation that is consistent with the reason without, and is certainly clears an atmosphere for me in thinking of the big question. In regard to our souls and their relation to God, I can best explain my thought by an illustration. Imagine glass filled only with air and sunlight, but the glass full of air and sunlight represent a soul, saying that the air is God within the soul, functioning as mind, and the sunlight is God as spirit. Of course, it is really all one and the same spirit, but manifesting itself in different ways. As the air and sunlight in the glass would be just a part of the air and sunlight in the room. That in the room would represent God in the whole universe. You can readily see that what your soul is. It is just your individual share of God's mind and spirit to have and use. This covers the definition of soul as being the limit of consciousness, and shows how at the same time you are in God and God is in you. Your life is your conscious share of God's life. And the fact that you have this individual part of God to realize and enjoy carries with it responsibility of choice and of giving expression to the divinity which is in you, or which you are. The garden of your own soul is for your personality to tend. Brilliant. Thus we see that we have a real part to take in the perfecting of our lives, and in doing this, we have many things to experience which seem very hard when our conception of God's plan is confused. But when from the heights our eyes behold the completed circle of the bright bow of promise, and we grasp the plan in its entirety, we can see whether we are tending and why, and the reward is seen to be more than worth the struggle. Of this we shall be fully convinced when we have reached a certain point by following faithfully all the light we have. We gain more light by deeply desiring more, knowing that it is to be found within ourselves because God is there, and that we can find it if we earnestly seek for it. For he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be open. Salvation must come to mankind through each individual's having a knowledge of his own true nature as a part of God. His failure to realize this, or the idea of separation, gives him the belief in evil as a power or thing of itself. And before man can begin to live a life of unhindered progress, he must realize that there is no other force in the universe but God. And before he can enjoy a rich, full life, he must understand that God's will toward him is always good, that God is love. Jesus taught us this, but we have to look largely disregarding it. We have looked upon God as a being who could be approached only through the merits of the vicarious suffering and death of a mediator. God does not want us to think we must go to him through such a mediator. In fact, we have not found the vital sense of unity with God as long as we feel that we cannot go to him direct. The only place in which a mediator enters into the great plane of life is where one with the greater light gives it to his brother man, as Jesus did, to enable him to recognize for himself his identity with God, thus joining in consciousness man and God. It's what many of us are doing right now. Jesus taught us that we should glorify God, but would you consider it to be glorifying even a human friend to attribute to his character such atrocious qualities as the traditional interpretation of the Bible has attributed to God? The crucifixion has been taken to mean that Jesus was a sacrifice to appease God's wrath and to make an atonement for our sins to save us from the consequences of the fall. But what was the fall? Simply the process of our receiving physical bodies. Thank you! Through which to manifest life. Yes! In this sense, Jesus' life and teaching does save us from the consequences of the fall, which consequences were a sense of separateness from God. Yes! But no wrath on the part of God. Correct. As said before, our unfinished state in the evolutionary process has given rise to the idea of the separateness from God, and God's kingdom cannot come on earth as long as such a lack of understanding of the wisdom and goodness of his plan of creation prevails in the minds of men, and they continue to consider any part of their being, mind or body, as separate from God, or anything that God has made and instituted to be scorned or as unholy. It was indeed Jesus's mission to meditate between God and man in this sense. The sacrifice of his body was to teach us with sufficient force that it might never escape the memory of man till the understanding could grasp the fact that God gave all, even his body, matter, that we might enjoy the fullness of conscious life, that our bodies, being a part of himself, are consequently holy, and that we are destined to inherit life eternal without death of the body when we have been made perfect in love and everything in our lives. Our bodies and all their functions have been brought fully into subjugation to the Spirit, have been lifted up and given back to God, redeemed by the knowledge that all is God, that all that God has made is good and pure in its spiritual conception, and is thus to be transformed by this thought about it. Jesus realized this truth, but knew the world did not, hence his willingness to make the sacrifice. God's nature is to give, not to withhold. He seeks to give to men through men, and so performance who sees the truth will give it, though he be scorned and spat upon and persecuted even unto death. The lower animal creation gives us the clue to the beginning of our physical manifestation. Jesus lifted up upon the cross portrays the tremendous truth that these physical bodies are part of God, and all their functions thereof wholly pure. Here are the 2 points that determine the line which indicates the progress of mankind from its lowest beginnings to its transcendent destiny. We are told that at the moment Christ's great sacrifice was finished, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from top to bottom. The mystery of the Holy of Holies of the body was made plain for us to comprehend as soon as our understanding, illumined by the Spirit, could grasp the truth. And the earth did quake and the rocks rent, emphasizing the oneness of the universal substance. When people realize that the Bible is telling them that God and man are one, that the life principle in the universe is the same life and power that is in them, they may learn to use the power to better all their conditions of life. The power is there, infinite, in the sense that there is a limitless amount to be used as we gradually learn how to use it. This is part of the evolutionary process, depending on us to learn to use this power rightly and cooperate with it. We cannot be relieved of our part in the matter and still have the joy of individual life and growth. It is necessary to get clearly in mind that the natural order of things in God's plan is for good and nothing but good to come to us, and that only thing which keeps it from coming is some obstruction in ourselves, originating in lack of knowledge of the whole truth about life. When we understand that we are all destined to be happy and that the law of life is always working for our highest good, even though it has to work correctly at times, we will attract good by our right understanding and thinking. People have not realized the possibilities of the mind to work them good or ill. It is essential that we understand ourselves and bear in mind that we are indeed made up in the image and likeness of God, with the power of the infinite at our disposal to work us good. when we understand it, or ill correction when wrongly used. We must realize that God's plan from the beginning of creation is happiness for every soul, and that everything we experience along the way of life is simply coincided with the stage through which we are passing, that trouble and sorrow will pass away from us with the coming of greater light, which enables us to correct the errors in ourselves. But if we hold the mistaken thought that we are helpless and have nothing to do about it, our errors are not corrected. And I say unto you, ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be open unto you. A right understanding of God's nature is the crux of the whole matter. When we really believe that God is good, we shall accept good from him, providing we are living in harmony with the laws of good. When we seek the light within ourselves and realize that God is the loving and all-powerful Father that Jesus taught us he is, when we learn to find him in the depths of our own souls, to talk with him, to go to him for help in everything, not failing to do our part when we can see it, when we can explain to him every situation that troubles us, no matter how insignificant or how great, and if it be beyond our present knowledge or power to control, leave it to him to make it all come right, and then trust and rest in the assurance that God really is our friend, that he wants to help us, and that is his pure love and power is more than equal to the occasion, so that all will properly taken care of. Then we shall have reached a stage from which we can proceed to greater light and power within the suffering through which we have passed to get to this point. It is essential to banish from our minds completely the thought that we have to pray to God to keep evil from coming upon us. The thing that we are living in, walking in, and breathing in, and that is trying to flow into us and through us, is love and good of every description. It is a question of our honoring God with a sufficiently good opinion of him to believe and trust that he will do the very best things for us that we will let him do. Anyone might be willing to accept the benefit of the law without conforming to the conditions under which good is naturally attracted, but we do not draw good in that way. And furthermore, the thing desired would not prove to be good to us as long as the condition in ourselves which obstructs it were not discovered and removed. This is the underlying truth of the belief that God punishes us for our sins. The laws of God, good, do of necessity keep us the good we seek, as long as there is something wrong conditioned existing in us, which keeps the good from flowing through us. But the whole plan is remedial and sorry, guys, it's hard for me to see any glasses. And kind in that it teaches us that there is something in ourselves that will keep us from happiness until it is removed. The law is unerring in its working. Good must flow through us through force of desire and using the means at our hands, of course, by the law like attracts like, in just the proportion that all barriers are removed from within us. And by the same accuracy of the working of the law, our good cannot be delayed after we are ready for it. We can never be free until we have thoroughly learned the lesson that we cannot miss our good. No day can come or go without enriching us to the full extent to which we have developed our capacity to receive. The thing for us to give our attention to is making ourselves right. The hindrance within us may be found to be one or more of many things. It may be ill will towards someone, lack of forgiveness. It may be anxiety or grief. It may be nothing that we are accustomed to call sin. It may be merely a great desire to help people when we have not yet found the proper expression for that desire, causing tension or restlessness. Good in the broad sense does not mean only what has been considered moral. God and nature and life are big things, and we are invited to open our eyes and study them as such. The coming of the kingdom of heaven on earth must be through the spiritually developed individual, and this condition cannot be brought about except by man's right understanding of God's nature and his relation to God, and by looking within for the light and following his individual guidance, no matter what persecution it may perchance involve. There is nothing else of much importance as that one should be true to his highest sense of right, no matter what people may think or say. It is not a matter into which praise or blame enters. The important thing to realize is that you have a straight course to pursue, to follow the light of the spirit within you, and let the consequences take care of themselves. This may require that you stand alone many times and through many seemingly dark days, as far as human encouragement is concerned, but you will sooner or later find it to be worth the struggle if you do stand, and what seem hard will become easy. Learn to look for the truth within yourself. Develop your interior powers for perceiving the truth by communing with the spirit within you. When everyone has learned to do this, the world will be light indeed, for everyone will have found the light within himself and will let it shine. We all owe it to one another to be ourselves and contribute whatever light we may get in our individual way, for we are all just a little different from each other, and thus do our part in helping to enlighten all. And no matter how ideal the standard raised aloft in the cause of the immortal truth, not until attention is directed from organization, system, church, and creed to the necessity for each one's applying the truth individually and making himself over by it as the only means of the soul growth, shall we be free from a repetition of history of all movements founded on the teachings of the seers of the past, the light of the prophetic message veiled in priestly ceremony, the vital spark all but extinguished, and the masses blindly groping for the way. I say all this stuff in updated modern terms, and that's the truest form of what I've been saying. It's up to you and your perception of reality and yourself, and um God's within, and you are God. God is you. There's no other ways than saying it. And she gets it, and this was written a long time ago. It's just been muddled through a lot of deception. Again, also very non-dualistic is her interpretation of evil, and it's the same one I attribute to non-duality. There is no evil. And the evil that is created is by yourself and the collective unconscious. So everything is source, the infinite intelligence, all that is. And if you are thinking evil and demons and all this nasty, horrible crap, then you are seeing God that way as well. There's no darkness without the light, and there's no light without the darkness. God's all things. It's up for you to determine and to live a righteous life and stop shaming and blaming source for its having experiences through other people. I'm going to leave it here. I repeat myself a whole lot, but she just gave everything I say on this channel and try to help people understand it. So I hope this is a better understanding for you. Fantastic chapter. Sending each and every one of you love, light, compassion, grace, shielding, and protective energy. Please go within. Be the shoulder. Be the lighthouse. Seed your truth respectfully and maturely, please. Don't forget to hit that like, share if you feel so compelled to do so. Subscribe to my channel. That helps me and the algorithms. I will be doing a paint and sip and possibly a channel member only video. That depends how exhausted I am. I have really saggy baggy eyes. I don't know why. I've been sleeping. Who knows? I also am healing a huge bruise. Really still is very sore. Um, Still healing the sinuses. So all in all, the energy's going wonky, and I'm very humbled for all of you, grateful and appreciative to everybody who watches me and gets something out of my work. Even though I'm just reading and getting you out of the one book paradigm. So until the next time, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.